Hi everyone, so today, per my father's request, I'm making Bulgarian meatballs, and he's not here to try them, but he requested that because in Bulgaria today is a religious holiday. It's called Saint Ivan's Day, which is his name day, my dad's name, Ivan. And he asked me to make Bulgarian meatballs, so I guess I'm making Bulgarian meatballs today. And this is my first favorite Bulgarian dish is moussaka, my second favorite is sarmi, and my third favorite is deep fried pork meatballs. So I start with 4 pounds of ground pork, and this recipe is very easy because it's all even number ingredients. So if you wanna do the recipe in a half or a quarter of it, it's very easy to divide. So I'm starting with 4 pounds of pork, and because Brad loves it so much too, that's why I'm making so much. We have the ground pork, and it has to be ground pork because ground beef, it's not as fatty, and we need it super fatty, so we get nice and delicious and juicy meatballs. And you have to start mixing everything about, I would say, at least a couple of hours prior to cooking, because once we mix all the ingredients and all the herbs and all that stuff, we're gonna have to let it sit in the refrigerator for a couple of hours to absorb all the flavors. So here I have my 4 pounds, or 4 pounds is approximate, so that's approximately 2 kilos. Next I'm gonna crack a couple of eggs, so it's 1 egg per 2 pounds of ground pork, or 1 egg per kilo of pork. Alright, got this one. And I don't know why, but you don't scramble the eggs and put them in, you have to crack them and put them in. At least this is what my mom does. So we got the eggs in. Now over here I have 2 large onions. So the onions are quite large. So 2 onions per 4 pounds of pork, or 2 onions per 2 kilos. So it's very easy to divide, because as you will see in a little bit, that's gonna make an enormous amount of meatballs. But Brad and I, we both absolutely love them. And as a matter of fact, if I hear him taking one out of the refrigerator, I go and I take one too, so I'm not behind. And the onions are shredded. You can either chop them very finely or shred them, but the thing that I'm using to shred them, it's electrical one, and there were quite a few large pieces in there, so it's probably better to shred it by hand. And over here I have about half a cup of very finely chopped parsley. And my mom doesn't put parsley because according to her it burns, but I don't think it does, and I love the parsley in the meatballs. Alright, now the herbs that I'm adding. So in Bulgaria we would normally soak about a slice of bread per kilo of ground pork, or 2 slices of bread per pound of ground pork. Soak it in water, squeeze the water out, and put the wet bread in there. However, the bread that I experienced here in the United States, even good organic bread, once I get it wet, it becomes like slime, like dough. So I ended up, in the past few years, I've been using the panko breadcrumbs, and that works just fine. And so for about a pound of ground pork, I'm adding 2 handfuls of breadcrumbs. We got our breadcrumbs. And now salt. I'm adding normally a pinch of salt per pound of ground pork. And when I say pinch, I mean a pretty generous one, just like that. And then I will add some ground black pepper. So I would say that's probably about a little bit less than a tablespoon. Now the next herb I'm using, it's called sharena, and this is a mix of a bunch of different herbs. It's a very popular Bulgarian herb that we use, or spice that we use in a lot of dishes. And you can go online, or if you have in your area Middle Eastern or European market, you can buy it there. Most of them carry the Bulgarian, it's called sharena salt. Alright, so I'm gonna add about a pinch per pound, so we end up with 4 pinches of sharena salt. The next one, it's my all-time favorite, which in Bulgarian it's called chubrica. In English it's called savory, and it's dried savory. And the dry savory would give so much flavor to any ground meat that you cook, pork or beef or chicken or turkey, whatever ground meat. So I'm gonna do about a pinch per pound, or that would be 2 pinches per kilo, and kind of crush it down. Usually it comes in kind of this leafy, it looks leafy like this. You just crush it with your fingers while you're spreading it. And then the last one, in Bulgarian it's called kumin. In English, I believe it's called cumin, cumin. So this one goes really well on ground beef and ground pork. This one, it's very strong herb, so I'm just gonna add about that much, or maybe twice. Yeah, I'll add 2. So that would be 1 pinch for every 2 pounds. And then, one of the last things I'm adding, it's some minced garlic. I have 2 cloves of minced garlic, which means about a clove per kilo, or a clove for every 2 pounds of ground meat, ground pork I should say. Let me squeeze a little more out of it. Now over here I have some water, so I'm gonna add just a little bit of water and I'm gonna mix it really well, and if I need to I'm gonna add some more water. The reason I'm adding the water is so that the mixture it's not sticky, so I'm just gonna add a little bit. Since the onions released a lot of liquid when I shredded them, I'm just gonna add a little bit and then mix it and see how it feels. And there is no different way. There is the eggie. Can I try to break the eggie in? There is no nice way to mix it. You just have to do it with your hands. So make sure you wash your hands, especially if you're gonna be feeding other people, and just start mixing and keep going and going and going, and make sure you incorporate all these ingredients together, everything, so you don't end up with one meatball tasting like garlic, one meatball tasting like onions or what have you. So everything gets nicely mixed, and actually I'm not gonna have to add any more water. If anything, I may need to add a little more breadcrumbs because it stays a little too wet, but I'm not done mixing yet because the breadcrumbs now are gonna start expanding and absorbing liquid. So I'm just gonna keep mixing until it's fully mixed, and that would take, oh, I would say probably good 6 or 7 minutes to get it mixed really nicely. And then I will decide if I need to add either more water or more breadcrumbs, as it's turning out right now, because it's starting to thicken now, because as I said, the breadcrumbs are starting to absorb the liquid, and you kind of feel with your hand, like right here, I felt ground pork kind of stuck together, a little chunk, so you just break it with your fingers. And if you're an American guy married to a Bulgarian woman, please ask her to make you meatballs. And if you're an American woman married to a Bulgarian guy, please ask him to make you some meatballs. Or if you want to surprise him, make him some meatballs. Oh, that is turning so good, and it smells just, the smell is just heavenly. Oh, I don't think I'm gonna have to add anything. The consistency is turning out really, really good. This is exactly what I'm looking for. Oh, that's beautiful. And again, don't hesitate to get your hands dirty, because it's turning out really well. So I only added maybe 1/4 cup of water. But again, if you actually choose to chop your onions and not to shred them, they're not gonna release as much liquid. Although my mom insists that shredding is so much better, but man, by hand with the cheese grater, that was gonna take forever. Your onions are not gonna release as much liquid, so you may need to add a little more water. But once I'm done mixing it, I will show you what the ground pork should be looking like. Scoop from the bottom and then flip it over, scoop from the bottom, flip it over, scoop from the sides, clean these sides, pick all the herbs from the side of the container that you're using, and just keep mixing. And just, it's very easy. You just scoop from the bottom and turn it over, scoop from the bottom and turn it over, scoop from the bottom and turn it over, scoop and turn. So, and if you're talking to someone, like the way I'm talking to the camera right now, time goes by pretty fast. So you may want to film yourself and make it go faster, the few minutes that you have to mix it. But it is so worth it, absolutely worth it. But I can't remember if it was meatballs or moussaka that I made for him, that was the first time that he said, oh, I think I'm gonna marry you and keep you forever. Pretty romantic, right? Yeah, I definitely need more liquid because it is getting really sticky. So I'm gonna add some more water here. All right. And again, the water makes it not only not sticky, but it makes for juicier meatballs. I'm always super happy when I'm filming something and it turns way better than it actually does when I'm not filming, because a lot of times, especially because I don't really use measurements, I kind of, do things, I kind of wing it with pretty much everything. And boy, lately when I film, it just turns out perfect. I don't have to do any corrections. That's pretty awesome. That's because I'm filming it for you guys. Wait until I start frying those bad boys here. They're so good. And as a side dish, I am going to make homemade French fries and roasted bell peppers with tomato sauce. And the tomato sauce that I'm going to use, you can also use as a pasta sauce. It's a good recipe I got from my mom. Okay, I'm gonna stop right here and put it in the refrigerator and let it sit there for a couple of hours. And in a couple of hours, I'm gonna come back, mix it again, and wait until I start frying the meatballs. They are going to be super tasty, but wait for a second. Okay, so don't just toss it in the refrigerator like this, but cover it with saran wrap so the ground pork doesn't dry out. And leave it in the refrigerator for a couple of hours. After 2 hours, in a large pan, preheat about 3/4 of a cup of cooking oil. You can either use sunflower oil or canola oil. And set the burner to medium. And while I'm waiting for the oil to preheat, I'm gonna start forming the patties. And you have to make the patties about the size of a regular hamburger patty. And you have to make them just as skinny. Make sure to squish them really well, because once we start frying them, they're gonna shrink. And another thing you should do is keep getting your hands wet. This way the ground pork is not gonna stick to your palms. It's much easier to form the patties. Once the oil is preheated, start placing the meatballs or the patties in the hot oil and fry them for about 4 minutes on each side. As you can see, the meatballs are not too brown, but they're not too pasty either. And one way to know if your meatballs are ready to be turned over is try to flip them very gently. And if it feels like they're stuck to the bottom of the pan, chances are they're not ready. So you're just gonna have to wait a little bit longer. And it's different with different burners, so you're just gonna have to experiment a little bit, because it all depends on how hot your stove burns. And after another 3 or 4 minutes, the meatballs are done and ready to serve. And these, I promise you, please try them. These are the best meatballs you're gonna have. So with 4 pounds of ground pork, I made 16 meatballs, and we ate them in less than a day. So we had dinner, I cooked them at about 7 o'clock at night, and by about 3 o'clock in the afternoon the next day, we had none left. So I'm pretty sure you're gonna like them. And thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions about the recipe, please put them in the comment section below. I'm gonna put the recipe in the description section. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing. And I really appreciate your support. Enjoy the meatballs. I love you all. Goodbye.